So this is Math 170, topic number 1, about plotting points. And this is in section 1.1 of your book. And the important thing about plotting points is to keep track of which is the dependent and which is the independent variable. So we usually write functions as y is a function of x, like y equals x squared, or y equals 3x plus 4. And what this really means is x is the independent variable, okay, and y is the dependent variable. Here we go. All right, now it doesn't, you can flip the x and y axis, and that's fine too, but you have to keep track of it. You have to keep track of okay, so it can go in either way, but what we're going to talk about right now is what is the standard way, and if nothing else is specified, what does it mean? So for example, if I give you the point 1, 4, it means over to the right from the origin and up from there. So here's where we start, right at the origin, and then you go over 1 and up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, up to here. There we go. Okay, so this point right here is the point 1, 4, right there. Okay, now this may sound trivial, but in the middle of an exam or something, you can get yourself all confused and forget which is which. And as a point of reference, I wanted to mention that if you have a TV screen or a computer screen, then it gets counted differently. All right, the way it works on a computer is this is the origin up here, and you count over and then down. That's the way we count on a computer screen. And what if you don't have a computer screen? Well, what if you have a matrix, which you might encounter later in mathematics? Okay, so what if you have a matrix? Okay, in that case, you start up here and you go down and then you go to the right. And that causes all sorts of trouble for people when they're learning how to deal with matrices. So it's not at all obvious that which direction should be first and which direction should be second, but this is the way we do it. And this is the way it always works with Cartesian coordinates as the default option. Okay, so we can mess it up, but if we do mess up this convention, then we have to be very explicit about what we're doing. Okay, so let's do a couple more examples. Let's see, if we put this point here, what do? Well, first we start at the origin again, and we say, starting here, how far over, make a little circle there, how far over right or left? So the first thing you ask is right or left. Question 1, right, which is positive, or left, which is negative. So we have to go all the way to the right over to here. Okay, and then question 2, is it up or down? Up is positive, or down is negative. And then this is your second question. So in this case, the point is 4, negative 2, because we went down. So you can't see, I wrote the wrong size. There we go. Wrong size. There we go. All right, so I'll do a couple more examples and then move on. Let's see. Let's put a point here. What is this? First you go over, so it's negative 3, because you're going over 3 to the left, and then it's up 1. So that guy is right there. Pick another color, another point. This one is over 3, down 3. And you may say, oh, it doesn't matter, they're the same. Right. On the line, if y equals x, you can go either way. It doesn't matter. But you'll get yourself confused if you think that way. Fractions. Fractions work the same way. So, if I had a point here, it's right in the middle. How do I do that? Well, it's 1, 2, 3.5. And then I go up from here, 1, 2, 3.5. Okay? So I go over and then up. Both cases 3.5. I feel like there's one more thing I wanted to say. Let me think about that for a second. I remember what it was. I wanted to talk about the quadrants and the axes. So I'm going to pause this for a minute while I erase what's on there. Okay, I've got that mostly clean. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is the quadrants. And this quadrant here, everything in the upper right corner, we call this quadrant 1. And then we move around in this direction. We move around counterclockwise. Sorry, that's just the way we do it. We call this quadrant 2, and then we call this quadrant 3, and then we call this quadrant 4. So I might refer to that sometimes this semester. Some problems live entirely in quadrant 1, and that's awesome, and some don't. And the other thing I wanted to point out is we have the origin here. 0, 0 is also called the origin. And then we have any points on the x-axis. So this is the interesting thing. Everything on the x-axis, y equals 0. And that can cause confusion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So for example, here's some points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what's this point? You don't go right or left, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The reason this is confusing, I think, is just because when you're doing something in context, you just forget. So if you're just placing points on the graph, you won't get this wrong. But people are always confusing which is the x and the y intercept, and so it bears repeating. So points that are on the y-axis is x equals 0, and points on the x-axis, y equals 0. Let me point this out one more time because this does cause some bit of confusion. Excuse me. Okay, so let's say we have this line. I want a line, please. Okay, let's say this is y equals 3. Then someone may say, well, what's this line? This is y equals 0, and this is y equals, say, -3. But this is, y equals 0 is also called the x-axis, okay? And so in various word problems, we'll say something like, you know, between the x-axis and y equals 3 or something like that. And people get all confused because they think of all these horizontal lines as being y equals lines. But then in the name x-axis, there's no letter y. So people get confused and think it's going the other direction. So think about it this way. When you're dealing with, you know, this would be, let's say x equals -5. X equals -1. This could be x equals 7. Those are all the x equals. This one is x equals 0, but it also has the name y-axis. So there, in the name, there's no x. Okay? So just be careful to realize when you see the word y-axis, replace it with x equals 0, and when you see x equals, replace it with y equals 0, and that will help reduce the confusion. I know one person is still really confused. Okay, I'll help you.